Hi, this is 365801 and this is my video for the hashtag 25 days of manga, Snowflake, favourite manga in your collection video. So as you can see, Wandering Sun, and I have volumes 1 to 8. This is probably my favourite manga to have in the collection, even though, and I'm being totally honest, I haven't actually read it all yet. This is my favourite manga in the collection because I think it's very important work to have. If I'm honest, my history with this title, I actually read it in scans for my sins, I know, but many years ago, probably around 2008, maybe around 2008, I read it in scans, and I think it was a very important manga for me then because it was so educational. It was allowing me into a world that I had never even imagined. I think back in the early 2000s, the idea of trans wasn't something that people really talked about. It wasn't in the media, it wasn't something that was prevalent in general conversation or within we didn't have social media back then very much. We had things like LiveJournal and stuff like that, so showing my age quite a lot. But it was so important for me to be able to read a story that allowed me to be educated about an issue that I was unaware of. And I myself am not trans, but I think it's really important that everyone is aware of these things, and so we can be more open and accepting and loving and embracing. I don't like the idea of tolerance, because tolerance just means that you're putting up with something that you don't actually believe in, whereas embracing the difference and loving the difference is so much more important. And I think Wandering Sun broke my heart in a way that I don't think I'd ever read a manga that had done that to me before. And this was on scans, so I feel really bad about it. So I always wanted to have a copy and I didn't think it would ever be translated, and it's translated by the wonderful Rachel Thorne, so you know it's really good quality translation. When I read it, I really was educated. I really did, learn something new about the world and about people in general. And I'd watched a few documentaries. I'd studied sexuality and gender, but on a very surface level. I'd watched some documentaries about the process of transitioning. I had even met someone who was transitioning from male to female, and for me it wasn't a joke, but it wasn't something I really understood. And so reading this manga opened my eyes and opened my heart to something that was quite heartbreaking, that someone was going through this, and that I could have supported them better, in a more productive way, or I could have just been aware. And awareness is something that's really important. So this is the title that I'm happiest to have in my collection, because it had such an emotional impact on me when I read it. I then moved to Japan, and I was very lucky to meet a teacher who I worked with, who was pretty big otaku, and she wasn't afraid to say that. And she's in her 50s, I think, and her favourite work is Fullmetal Alchemist. So we would talk about that, and she was the one that introduced me to Silver Spoon when it was first being published in Japan. She gifted me all of her volumes to read, with the proviso that I give them back and then give her a full review of what I had read. And I remember being in a class, in a high-level English language class with her, and she was discussing issues. We were doing a lot of discussion about specific topical issues at the time, and one of them was about different individuals who might be transitioning and their rights within Japan. This is a long time ago. This was, 2010, maybe 2011, around when Volume 1 was actually being published in English. And she was the one that brought it up in the class. Hey, has anyone read this wonderful manga by Shimura Takako? And I was standing next to her saying, actually, I have heard of this manga and I thought it was really amazing and really emotional. And the two of us ended up having this very otaku-like conversation at the front of the class, in front of a whole class full of 16, 17-year-olds. And some of them had said, yes, I did know of this, and some of them didn't know, and they were very interested. And I think that's one of the enduring memories of how important and how impactful manga can be when two women, different in age and different in nationality and race and experience, can stand in front of a class full of young, almost adults, very late teenagers, and talk so passionately about something. We were so enthusiastic. So many of them said, oh, I want to go find out about this manga, I really want to read this. So I know some of them went off and read it and came back and said, wow, that was really powerful, I cried buckets. And it was like, yes, isn't it just so emotional? And it really educated not only me, but then it educated all these other young people moving up through the world and going off into the world and being fabulous wherever they are. And so this is a really important manga for me. I was really disappointed when I came back from Japan because I wanted a copy. I wanted the copies that were available. They looked beautiful, but they're very, very expensive, full price when they were new, and it was just hard for me to afford it at the time. I couldn't afford to buy any manga at that point. But I knew I had read it, and just like Manga Hoarder, if I read something as a scan, I would very much like to be able to own it either in Japanese or in English translated. So that's my goal as well, is to make up for past sins. And when you know that someone who has really got this as part of their very soul, is Shimura Takako's work is just so wonderful that you know that they're writing from a place of understanding and love, and with Rachel Thorne's translation as well. So it's an absolute travesty that I have not actually read the English volumes, and I know you're all screaming wondering why, because I know it's going to break my heart. I know I'm going to sit down and read this, and even just thinking about the story, because I'm remembering it, is making me emotional, because it had that much of an impact on me. It is a wonderful story, and I'm so grateful to have this in my collection. You're wondering, how on earth did she get 8 volumes then? Amazingly enough, I was watching, I think, Simply G's, one of Simply G's videos, and I think she was talking about Shimura Takako's other works. I think is it Sweet Blue Flowers? I don't actually have any other of her work. I would like to get them eventually. I will. And it just reminded me of how much I loved this story and how much it hurt to read and how much I felt like it was important. And so I just clicked on eBay and I wondered how much I could, if there was a set going somewhere. I looked on Amazon and I looked on a few other sites, and on eBay that day someone had put up in the UK, and that's the thing, being in the UK it's harder to get some titles. Someone had put up the full set 1 to 8 in excellent condition, and they've obviously taken very good care of them, and put them up for £80. Now £80 in one big lump sum is an awful lot of money, but still cheaper than buying each volume individually at full price, and she said that she would send them without any shipping fees, so I could buy them outright for £80, and that's less than cover price. So I definitely I didn't hesitate. I thought, how much money have I got? I don't care. Literally, this has to be mine. It was like fated. I just felt it was very much like this is the time for me to have these volumes, and for all 8 of them for £80, and they came a few days later, and I think I cried a little when I opened up the box because she'd wrapped them so nicely and with such care, and as they should be. They're so beautiful. They're such great quality prints, such beautiful binding and colours, and the drawings and artwork is just so gorgeous. I'm just so grateful to have them in my collection. I will sit down and read them, but I need to prepare my heart. I need to prepare my soul, because that's how deep this kind of story goes with me and how it affected me. I just think they're wonderful. If you can get some of the volumes. I think a couple of them are a little bit difficult to get hold of, and they do go up in price a bit, but I think you can still get them for less than £20 each, which is quite good. They're just wonderful. If you are thinking about getting them, do try. They are a bit difficult, but give it a good shot and try to get them if you're at all interested in this story about these 2 young individuals trying to make their way in the world. And I'm eternally grateful for a fantastic translator choosing to do this work, and Fantagraphics publishing it. I really do wish though that they had published the rest. There's 8 volumes published, I have them, but I think there are 15 volumes, so I will have to buy the other volumes in Japanese, and I will one day get round to translating and reading them for myself, unless Fantagraphics decides to go back and try and republish them. I do think almost they were too ahead of their time. The first volume was published in 2011, and at that point in time I don't think trans rights was really such an issue as they are just now. And as I'm filming this, there is quite a lot of buzz on Twitter. I'm sure you'll all know what it is. And so I do think it's so important that we recognise the rights of all individuals. And this story seems to have come at a time when people weren't ready to recognise that, or the world at large wasn't, and they weren't able to recognise the genius of the story as well. So volumes 1 to 8 has been published, but the rest of the volumes not yet. It would be amazing if we could ever get them in English, even if it was digitally. And if you can get them digitally, please let me know, because I'm not sure if you can, but I would really like to be able to purchase the whole series in one form or another. This is my favourite manga in my collection for the reason that it is heartbreaking and it is important. Merry Christmas!